ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. It's another episode of the Music Business Mentorship. I'm your host, John Sheil, and this is my very good friend, professor of marketing and blues guitar player and father of several, two kids, right? And husband of one, the man himself, Aron Levin. Aron, welcome to the program. Thank you.
Hi, John. Thank you. Honor to be here. I'm excited about it.
So I have talked to you at length about marketing in the past, but what we're going to talk about today is really your involvement with the music business. And you have a really unique perspective as a performer, as a father of a performer, sort of the father who is also somewhat of a manager of your son's business. And your son, who's been playing from a very young age, has kind of taken off. And now you're in this position where you're bandmate and performer with your son sometimes, and co-writer of songs sometimes, and marketer and manager sometimes. So you wear a lot of hats. How, though, did you get started in your music business?
Well, I have had bands since I was in graduate school. So I went to University of Kentucky and got my PhD a long time ago in the mid 90s. And I've loved music ever since I was a little kid. I knew I was never good enough to do it full time, but I was having fun and playing music through my PhD program at UK. And then when I was a young faculty member, I always had bands. And then this young boy of mine, Ben, showed an interest in music. Turned out he was a good piano player. Sat in with me when he was starting at 11 years old. His mom would bring him to bars and play with my band, just a little guy, a little squeaky voice. And boy, he grew into a man. He turned really, really good. And he passed me by. And so now, yes, I do get to play with him a couple gigs a month, but he's flying out of the nest. He does a lot of, probably half of his shows are out of town. So I do keep a day job as professor at NKU. So I have really get most of my satisfaction from, like you said, we write, we record together, and I really enjoy. I do manage him. I've been looking for a manager and a booking agent, but I have high standards, and nobody's going to protect him the way I do. Nobody's going to love him the way I do. So I do that, and I've been teaching marketing for 23 years, and I've had a consulting company, corporate marketing, helping companies, the Googles, the P&Gs, and everything small and in between for about 15 years. So within the last 6 years, when Ben turned 18, we sort of turned on the faucets for marketing him and getting him established online. And so it's like one giant experiment of me trying to figure out how to enhance his brand, how to get him gigs, how to get him paid for his craft, and how to get him the best collaborations with the people who he dreams of collaborating with. So in a nutshell, yes, I guess I do wear a lot of hats as husband, father, professor, once in a while, guitar player, and really just orchestrator of brand Ben, if you will. I always say, marketing's really not that hard if you have a great product. And I might be biased, but it sure is a joy to see the people he reaches with his shows and with his albums and collaborations and stuff. So that's I think that might answer your question.
Well, having run sound for you guys a few times, I can tell you that as someone who's watching the show, it's really great when you get to perform together, because there is this father-son chemistry, and it's heartwarming. It really is, to have Ben say, I'm playing with my pops, and just it's really cool. It's a neat thing. So
well, thank you, John. I mean, that's authentic. I'll never be as good. He's playing with the best blues guitarists in the world. We have a show in a few weeks with Little Ed Williams from Chicago, and there's many others Ben plays with. Sean Carney out of Columbus, who won the IBC Guitar Player, but they don't have the DNA. And so there is something about father and son who have played with each other literally since Ben was before he started playing on stage with me, at home doing little shows for the dogs. And so thank you for noticing that. And people do always come up to me when I get to play with him, and they point out something similar to what you just said, that there's something pretty special about that. It's
Yeah,
authentic. It's authentic.
it's amazing. It really
Thank
is.
you. Thank you.
Now, you've been marketing and you've been in the marketing world for, as you said, over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me some of the things that you've noticed that have changed and has taken on that role as marketer for a musician. Is that different than marketing for the Fortune 100 companies you've
It's night and day. I mean, the principles are similar as far as you got to reach the right audience with the right message at the right time. You have to have a clear and concise branding so that people understand who you are and what you're all about, not just what kind of music you play, but the thing you said about the father and son. That's part of Ben's brand. He's a normal guy. He's a normal guy who loves his family, who really wants to carry on the blues tradition and do it with respect for the elders and collaborate with them while they're still here. Unfortunately, some of his friends have passed away because he's collaborating with people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. So, so the brand is way more than just, oh, he's a blues musician. Well, what kind of blues? No, it's yeah, that's part of it, but it's about, what do you want people to think about you? It's just, so in that sense, it's like the Coca-Colas of the world. It's like the Delta Airlines, that yes, you have this image that you want to portray, but how you go about doing it could not be more different than it is for the clients I worked with in the Fortune 100s, because we don't have budgets, right? We don't have the money to do that. So we got to bootstrap, and we have to create all this stuff that the Fortune 100s are spending millions, hundreds of millions on. Well, we can't. Maybe we have a little bit of money. I've hired some graphic designers to help make a logo for Ben. We finally have a logo for him, to make some tour posters and things like that. But otherwise, it's blood, sweat, and tears. It's time. It's me spending time behind the computer, looking at Google Analytics and seeing what countries he's reaching on his website, looking at the behind the screen stuff on Facebook and Instagram to see, did that video get any traction? How long did people watch it for? Where did people watch it? Did people watch it in the cities that we're planning on touring in this summer, and that kind of thing? So you have the same principles that I've been teaching for years to try to groom the young folks here in the university who want to go work for the P&Gs and the Googles, etc. But for the musicians and the creatives, you have to be so frugal. So you have to know those principles, and then you have to know how to do it basically on a zero budget. So it's quite challenging.
So how would you advise a young music marketer? Let's say there's someone in a class of yours who might want to be Ben's manager and is willing to put the time in, because in that phase of their life and college years, they've got time, and they're used to living on not much of a budget. But how would you advise them to go about strategy for an aspiring or up and coming musician, such as Ben or similar?
Well, I think the first thing is to take an audit and to learn everything you can about that musician. I have what I call, and I'm not the one who named it this, but a business ecosystem is something that I run my students through, to take an audit of themselves and to articulate everything they can about all the interrelationships of all the different people and organizations that they work with or that they dream of working with. So for Ben's, it's the record labels, it's the media, it's the blues magazines that he's been in. I'm gonna look at his right now here. It's the sponsors that we've been lucky to have for different shows that we put on. Of course, it's the recording, it's like I said, the record label, it's sync licensing as a moonshot, something that we want to do. So I would advise, I think you said you're going to provide a visual of this. I would advise someone who's interested in managing a particular musician or artist, or doing it for themselves. I would run them through this really intense but fun. It's fun. It's exploration. You learn things about yourself. And it's a visual, and then behind that visual is a document. And Ben's document is it's about 2 pages long with bullet points of specific people that he's collaborated, festivals he's played at, festivals that he hasn't, but that he wants to play at. It's kind of like your everything you have and everything you want to have, and it's changing constantly. You always are. It's a very dynamic document. Don't print it out, because it's going to change tomorrow if you're doing it right. So you're always tweaking it. But that's what I would recommend to the young, aspiring musician, artist, or person who wants to manage such an artist. Find out everything you can about the resources available. Also about the potholes on the road of what things have not worked, what things are challenging. Of course, with music now, there's so many things are challenging because the business model of selling your music, well, you know how that is, John. CDs have gone like this every year. You have sell less and less and less because cars now don't. The last 4 years, cars haven't had. So that's just an example. When you look at your ecosystem, you have opportunities, you see things, and then you can, with other documents that I like, understanding your business model. That's a whole nother thing that's related to that. That's when you start looking at potential opportunities, like one we're looking at now is, should we do vinyl next year? It's not a simple decision, right? You can't just say, hey, vinyl's going like this, CDs are going like that. Well, shoot, we got to do vinyl. No, you look at a bunch of things. You look at the cost structure of it. You look at the revenue side of it. You look at the shipping costs, how easy or hard it is to take those things. Like if you're going overseas, that's a whole nother story, bringing LPs as opposed to CDs. So, yeah, there's a lot to it. We could talk all day. I love talking about this stuff. It's complicated. You got to know, you got to do your homework. And if you're an artist, because most artists can't afford an agent, right? Most independent artists can't afford a manager necessarily. They're doing it by their bootstraps. Ben is sort of fortunate to have me, but if you're a typical artist or musician, you have to not only do your art and keep practicing and keep playing gigs and keep rehearsing and writing songs, but then you have to be disciplined and dedicate yourself. You have to allocate time to do all this stuff. It can be daunting, but it's worth it, because you want to get your art, your music out to more people, and you're going to enrich their lives, and in turn you're going to enrich your life. But it's just a hell of a lot of work. You talk about, you wear a lot of hats. I know you do. Entertainment lawyer, lights guy, sound guy, everything, mentorship, music business mentorship guru. But it just means that anytime that there's downtime, chances are you're like, no, I should really do that. I should look at my spreadsheet and think about my schedule for, of course, we're already booking out aggressively for 2024. So, you just can't rest on your laurels. There's always something to do. Hopefully it's a labor of love, though, what we do.
Absolutely. Well, 2 things. One, Ben is absolutely very lucky to have you. And I think that you've perfectly encapsulated something that I try and teach in the music business mentorship, is that planning really is important, and that writing a business plan, or having the audit as you described it, is crucial to understand the lay of the land and moving forward. And it's interesting you're talking about vinyl. I mean, for those of you who are listening, if you're thinking about where you're playing, and Ben does perform overseas, just the fact is, the weight of vinyl versus the weight of CDs is a factor. It's an exponential difference in price to carry that much weight with you overseas. So it's
right. Really, and it's not just the size, the volume, and the weight. Unfortunately, it's so fragile. I mean, I just bought. We're buying vinyl now. My wife and I are buying vinyl. Love to go to shows, and if they're selling vinyl, we buy it. And I saw one of my favorite young musicians, Eddie Ninevolt, who's just taken the world by storm. He opened up for Grace Potter, and we went and saw him. I bought his vinyl, 2 of them, in fact, I got home and one of them had a scratch, and it's like I can live with it. I'm bummed out. I'm not going to try to send it back and get another one, but that's an issue. That made me think, oh, okay, CDs don't have that problem, right?
Right. Right.
So these are things to think about.
It's a unique collectible of vinyl, and I think a vinyl record obviously has the analog sound that we all as artists wish every format could have. Streaming
Absolutely.
and MP3s don't have the same
No,
level of audio quality, but it is it's a very fragile collectible that can be destroyed very easily, and
right.
it brings it a little closer to what it was in the early days when music was harder to come by. But
Yeah.
I think it's important to have on your merch table. What other merch is selling well for Ben?
Well, t-shirts are kind of hit and miss. Of course, we don't have, we don't do the drop shipping thing, so we are very limited in our product line, so to speak. We make it, we have it, we hope to sell it. So it's a lot of t-shirts we have, which in the summer they sell okay. We're hoping it picks up a little. The holidays is always a little boost. People are spending money and buying gifts and things. Um, he's done well with still selling CDs. He's had uh, 5 or 6 records that he started recording when he was just 17, I think. So we have those, and honestly, I don't know if you and I have talked about it. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people just buy those to support the artist, whether they have a CD player or not. They know that it's a keepsake and get it signed at the show. And it's almost, to me, it's almost like leaving a 15 or $20 tip, which is awesome. It's so generous. Um, but I don't know that they're necessarily listening to it. And that's fine. I mean, I want them to listen to Ben's music, but if they're dropping the money on that and then listening on Spotify, well, God bless them for doing that.
Yeah,
But I really do believe that if we do get vinyl next year, anybody buys a vinyl, they're buying it and they're going to listen to it. It is a keepsake, and the cover art's got to be great on a vinyl because it's so much bigger. So luckily, Ben's a good looking guy. I mean, he looks good in the photos. But that's something we're eager and excited, but I guess I'd say we're cautiously optimistic about making vinyl. Definitely not plunging right into it until we really do the right analysis and make sure it makes sense.
well, I know that there's a longer lead time for vinyl pressing than most people are aware of. So, just for our listeners out there, if you're planning on vinyl in your business strategy, you're going to want to look at who your supplier is and you're going to want to place your orders early. And in fact, in the discussion a couple episodes ago with Emmeline, she plans her releases a year out because of that very thing. So, it's a good thing to think about that in your business plan, you're thinking a year out when you have a release so that you can register your stuff with the US Copyright Office. You can pitch it to ads, TV, and film. You can drip release stuff on Spotify in the waterfall method, and you can then have an actual vinyl release party. And hopefully you get a lot of those 10 to 15 to $20 tips at the party of the folks who are your fans that are the diehards, the true fans that'll buy it no matter what. But I do think that just for Ben, it's a perfect format for him. For those listeners who aren't familiar with Ben Levin, he sounds like an older blues artist, a heritage legacy blues artist, and he's so young, and he's really encapsulated the style of the older genre and incorporates new themes. And you guys wrote a song about the staying inside for the during the pandemic, right? So it's very topical, very modern, but it's got a legacy to it that is undeniable.
Yeah, we did a couple songs on a few albums. We did one was called Carry Out or Delivery, which
That's
was
it.
written right in March of 2020, where every sign we saw, carry out or delivery. I was like, hey, let's do a song. And then Ben wrote a really cool song called I'm Your Essential Worker, which is kind of a fun double entendre in the tradition of blues songs. And it's everybody still can remember when you say essential worker. It's like it takes you back to that very, very strange time in our lives in 2020 and 2021. So yeah, thanks for noticing those. Yeah.
Oh, incredible stuff. Really
Thank
very
you.
smart, very well crafted music that clearly speaks to the heritage, but also speaks to today. So I think it's great stuff. But it does bring up the challenges of the pandemic, and I know you went through some personal challenges as well. I guess this is our segue into the challenges of the music business. But personally, do you want to talk a little bit about that and coming back from it?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Well, it was exactly 3 years ago when I got really, really sick. Um, we were playing in 2020, we shut down like everybody else. We shut down for months and months and months, and we were doing live streams on YouTube and Facebook to keep our sanity and keep our music out there. But as soon as things opened up a little bit in summer of 2020, we started playing outdoor gigs. And boy, the weather was great in summer and fall of 2020. We were busy. We were hopping. We were playing weddings and playing restaurants out on patios and rooftops. Um, and then one night when we were just getting ready to shut down for the season, there was a night in early November, and it was still warm. The weather was great. It was like 60s in the day, and we thought we'd be playing outside, but they moved us inside, and a little bells went off in my head like, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do it. But I did. And both Ben and I got COVID, and we both were really, really sick. But he, being young, he was, I guess, 20, 21 at the time. He got better and I didn't. So I ended up going to the hospital and being on a ventilator, given less than a 3% chance of survival. So my family, unfortunately, they couldn't even visit me because it was during the high surge and there was no visitors. So basically my family really had to say goodbye to me from afar. And I I guess I had a strong constitution and decided it wasn't my time yet. So I fought. And the day after they said he's not going to come out, I came out. I came out of the coma. So talk about a new perspective on life, and took me a long time to come back. And I was in the hospital for almost 2 months, I think. And
Wow.
then physical rehab and all that. Had to relearn how to do everything: to eat, to walk, to talk, to play guitar. I remember when I finally got back to my house and finally got out of bed and start walking. I didn't think I'd ever play guitar. I just couldn't move my hands, and everything slowly came back. So yeah, that changed my life. It refocused my priorities. It made me, well, it humbled me for sure to know that the old cliche, tomorrow's not promised, is so true. But it also focused on my music. It's like, what do you leave behind? And so I've written more songs with Ben since then. In the last 3 years, I've written more songs. Everything's a little more urgent for me. It's like, hey Ben, can we do another album? Oh, Dad, we can wait. Well, no hurry. Yes, Ben, I know that for you because you're 23, 24, but I'd like to do it. I got these songs. I'd like to do it. And so that has really enhanced my creativity and my productivity. And then it motivated me when I was getting better and recovering. And of course, I was off work for 6 months. Then I was just staying home and trying to get better in early 2021. And I was, a lot of time to think and ponder. And one of the things I said, okay, so what's my career now? I've been established, a tenured professor. Everything's great, but is there something more I could do? And that's when I dreamed up the idea of the marketing for creatives class, because I know that a lot of musicians, actors, painters, etc., dancers, they have a hard time marketing. They're not taught that in college. They're taught how to act, how to make music, how to do watercolors. So one of the things I did when I was recovering is I dreamed up this class, which I've now taught 2 times here at NKU, and it's been wonderful. Marketing for creatives. So I'm looking across campus at the School of the Arts over there, and we draw students from over there to come over here and learn from me. And a lot of the lessons and things that I'm learning in real time, as far as what works and doesn't work with my son, I'm teaching them the things, like you see the business ecosystem. That's one of their assignments is to do that. So that's a long answer to your question about how the pandemic affected me, but it certainly did. And I people think it's weird when I show them my tattoo that says "still here" that I got. I never was a tattoo person, but I earned this one. And I'm going to get a guitar built around it too pretty soon.
That's awesome.
Thank you. But that's people. It's strange for me to tell people that me getting so sick was actually a gift, because now the life I live is more filled, more fulfilled, and like I said, it's more urgent. It's like, no, I don't want to wait to do that stuff. I want to make sure I have every box checked off of the proverbial bucket list. I just played with Ben at a festival down in New Orleans a month ago, and it was definitely a bucket list. And I think it's Jackson Square, a big square, with thousands of people, and just playing with my son, playing with little Jimmy Reed, things like that. I don't want to say, yeah, I can do that. I'll do that someday. No, I want to, if there's a possibility of it, I'm going to make it happen now.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I hope everyone listening takes that to heart, because it really is, tomorrow is not promised, and it's time to do it now. So that's really great. I'm glad you're still here, by the way. You're a tremendous asset to both me as a friend and to your students. And I've been lucky enough to get to speak to your students on 2 occasions, and I hope we can keep doing that. But
Definitely.
That really invigorates me. And I'm wondering if you feel the same way. Talking to the college students of today, they have grown up with technology in a way that you and I did not. I didn't have my first cell phone until I was maybe 22. And these kids are just growing up, just immersed in social media. And I'm wondering if you're learning lessons as a professor from them, or from the things that they see and bring to class. Now, you've been a college professor for a long time, so you've probably seen these trends come and go. But are there things that you're seeing in your students or learning from your students that you can then apply to the music business?
Well, first of all, I learn from my students every day. I do, and part of it is being current and understanding how people communicate now. It's very different. So I learn a lot of that stuff from them. I'm really kind of a, what's the word, neophyte? What's that word? I have a hard time. Like I told you, I'm hiring. I think I mentioned it before we went on air. I've hired, these kids are amazing in this marketing for creatives class. I've hired about 5 or 6 of them to help design Ben's logo, design tour posters, show posters. And one of the things I'm learning about Gen Z is they do not communicate via email the way you and I do. And it's not appropriate for me to get their phone numbers while they're still in my class. However, when I'm working and I'm the client and I'm paying them, and please don't misunderstand me. The work they have done for me this semester is amazing, but I'll email them, and it takes a couple of days sometimes. And the client wants something done. They want it done right away, and that's just not how they communicate. The emails, like, they look at it maybe once a day. You and we look at it all day.
Yeah.
Different generations, but gosh, there's so many things I learn from them. Of course, I'm not a big TikToker at all, but I understand that that's how they do everything on TikTok, John, a lot of Gen Z. And so if I want to understand how to connect with Gen Z, that's a whole nother issue of target audience. And with blues, I could show you some data from there's international data, and then there's data I have on Ben's social media and website. It's mostly 55 and older. So, if I really want to shift things and make his music more accessible to young people, the more I learn, the more I talk to the young people, it's like, oh, that's cool music. Well, why don't you listen to it? Well, I didn't see it on TikTok. I don't see any videos. So yeah, I mean, keeping up with them and their trends, just when I thought I had Instagram kind of figured out. Well, Instagram's not all that. It's okay, but it's cooler than Facebook, right? For young people. But as you know, TikTok's where it's at. And you and I have had this discussion. And Ben, being the old soul he is, he's not on TikTok.
Yeah.
So I definitely, there's a ton to learn from these young people. But more than learning lessons from them, just absorbing their enthusiasm, absorbing their sense of wonderment, that helps fuel me. And I think being a professor could either make you feel old because every year you're a year older and they're younger, right? So it's like now it's weird because my students are younger than my kids, which is totally bizarre. Because when I first got in the classroom, I was just a few years older than the students. So it's bizarre. But I try to focus on it can also make you feel young because you're trying to inspire them. You're seeing a spark in them. And you could feel 6 feet off the ground after talking to them. Sometimes on a good day, it's inspiring to know that you're helping guide them. So I try to take that side home with me, that I feel younger usually when I meet with them, and I do learn a ton from them.
I want to say that I feel 6 feet off the ground when I leave your class. And
Yeah.
it's really part of the motivation for me to create this music business mentorship, because I do get such a high off of helping the folks who are coming up and who are learning and who have a different, newer, fresher perspective on everything, the landscape of social media or music or anything. It's really, for me, really invigorating. And maybe for you, some of these folks who have done your tour posters might help you with some short form video content that could be on Reels and TikToks. And maybe you've got some videographers out there, or who, everybody's a videographer now on TikTok. They all have their phones, right, and they know what works and what doesn't. So maybe invite them to a show. That could be fun.
Yeah. That's actually a great idea. And Ben came for the last class of the semester and met him and talked with him. And one of my students is a filmmaker, and the filmmaker talked to him and said, "Hey, I got this idea, and your music would be perfect in it." So, you never know. That's another topic at some point during our talk today. I'd love to talk about networking and collaborating. It's something that we all say, you got to do it. You got to do it in this business, especially for young people. But it's really, really hard. It's easy to say, "Hey, go out and get a mentor." It's so easy for me to tell them that. But in reality, it's nearly impossible. And as soon as you start thinking, "Oh, I need a mentor, let me ask somebody, John, will you mentor me?" That kills everything, right? Yeah.
Well, hopefully there's a way to do it. But I do think you touched on something when you said that email is not their preferred method of communication. And this is something that I've had to learn over the past 5 years. Is it's really important when I engage with a client early in the conversation to say, what is your preferred method of communication? Because some people, there are folks out there who communicate, their fastest response is going to be on Snapchat. And then their second fastest might be a text message. There's others where they will answer an email in a day, but they won't answer a text message for 3 or 4 days. And it just depends on how they view social media. So on all of the forums that I put out, whether it's for my law firm or for music business mentorship, the question is, what is your preferred method of communication? And hopefully that builds a bridge. And then that conversation of maybe, do you want to help me, or how can I help you, is a little bit easier. It's all about meeting people where they are in my practice. And hopefully that can carry forward. But I think every listener should understand that if you're talking to someone who is a lot older than you, their use of the phone is going to be very different, and their use of email is going to be very different. And if you're talking to someone a lot younger than you, that also might be the case. And it might be different regions of the country. Maybe some people just use Snapchat as their primary tool for communicating with their friends and people they're close to. And text message is more like formal, and email, like how we used to see email, text messages are the new email. But it just depends. So it's one of those things. I do think that you're seeing a lot of that on the cutting edge, and networking is hard for college kids. I think that they're in a bit of a bubble. And so how do you recommend that they go out and explore the world? That's their.
Well, I recommend that we start with what's closest to us. And so in this class of 20 students, where it's mixed, it's a really neat mix of singers, piano players, graphic designers, dancers, actors, lighting people. Get to know everybody in this class. We have, discussions every day. And one thing I haven't done, but I need to do next semester when I teach this class again is rotate it. Okay, last time you had this dyad, or maybe it's three people where I give them ideas to think about to stimulate their creativity and talk about, it's okay, let's talk about your elevator pitch, for example. Well, one day it should be these two, and then we should shift it around, because here we have 20 people in a very safe environment. We're all tied together with this unity of NKU, and we're all creatives. And you find that, oh, hey, wait a minute, I need a logo design for me. I need a poster. And oh, you're a singer. Well, you can help each other out. So I think that is a way to start. Certainly, they have had connecting with me has helped them. It's so cool because I told you I have like 5 or 6, I think maybe 6 students in this class out of 20 who I'm hiring and paying to do stuff for me and for my son. And it was really cool because all of them had said, hey, you're my first client. I didn't know how to submit an invoice so, again, what's close to you. Look at what's closest to you. And honestly, when I bring somebody in like you came in, I probably had a half dozen great guest speakers this semester. I really urge the students to hang around and talk to them, get to know them. You never know, just getting the contact information can open up so many doors, just like with Ben and the student who makes films and him waiting around to the end saying, hey, I got a project. I'm working on this movie. So, there's that. Then there's cold calling. There's messaging people that you admire, that you'd love to work with. It's hard. It's really, really hard. It takes guts. It takes, you got to be ready to be ignored, quite honestly. And you got to be ready to try again with different people. But there's, you just have to do it. You have to get out of your, like you say, the bubble. College students very much in a bubble, especially after COVID, very, very leery of communicating face to face. Everything is through a screen. So you have to get out of your comfort level, because networking is absolutely critical. You have to create opportunities, whether that's with your fellow students in class, with your professor, with guests that come in, or if you're not in college, with going to different associations, meetings, conferences, whatever the case might be. It could be a local level, could be national, could be international. Quite honestly, a lot of that is done through our computer, through messaging. If you're on social media and there's a musician who you really admire and you think, wow, I'd love to collaborate with him or her, it's kind of a moonshot, but you can always message them. They'll be flattered that you did. It might not be realistic, but Ben has had some great success of collaborating with these elder musicians who he originally reached out on Facebook Messenger and just said, hey, I'm a young musician. I play blues. I've admired you. Doing an album next year. I got a song in mind that you would be great on guitar or on singing. And now he's got several recordings with these people that he reached out and cold called. And now he's not only recordings, but tours and different gigs with them around the country and around the world. So you just have to be bold. You have to step out, you got to take a deep breath, and whether it's going to the networking event or cold calling somebody, you just have to be bold, be courageous. It's not easy. Many of us who are artists and creatives are we are very introverted. People don't know that because we're out on stage and we smile and we have a great time. But when it comes to that kind of communication, it's not always easy for us.
Yeah, I completely understand. I want to say, though, for our listeners, that if you have not established yourself with a professional profile on LinkedIn, it might be a good step for you. I have run into this issue where, with my main personal profile on Facebook, I hit the 5,000 friend limit. And so there's limits on that to how much I can then reach out to folks or become their friend, or even reach out to them with a cold email. And the same with Instagram. If they don't see the DM and they don't respond and give you permission, if it could go very easily into a request folder that doesn't get seen. But LinkedIn, I'm finding there's a lot of folks who treat it very much like a professional inbox and usually get back to people. And so for our listeners, if you're not on LinkedIn, I would encourage you to establish a profile there and use all the tools. I think that it's important to be resourceful, right? So if you're running into a wall on one platform, you shift to another. But I think that Ben is a unique example where he's building a bridge across generations, and yet his music speaks to the young folks. You have said this young filmmaker. I think Ben's music would be great in a film. And for those music supervisors who may be listening, Ben Levin is phenomenal. And I know you'll be able to find his stuff on Disco. And certainly we're going to be talking about that in the coming year, pitching more for sync licensing. And I know that Ben has had some success with Concord. But what other goals do you have for Ben over the next year or 2 years or 5 years? What do you see is the next step for him?
Well, that's a great question. So it's not, of course, it's not up to me. I take orders. I take orders from him. I try to put in play what he authentically wants. Of course, I give him a lot of suggestions because I'm his dad. I'm his manager, and I'm his dad. But I know that what he wants to do is he wants to capture the magic of blues with the masters while they're still here, and he wants to help them along and have them help him. So I know this is kind of broad. I mean, obviously we want to keep doing, we're so elated with how the wind has hit his sails, and he's been invited to all these great blues cruises and great festivals and stuff. Just could not ask for more. I would not have guessed. I honestly, when COVID hit, I thought, well, oh crap, here he's been nominated for a Blues Music Award. Everything was taken off. I thought, well, this is just going to, everything's done, I could be a doomsdayer sometimes. But it after COVID, it picked up better than ever. So goals for 5 years, keep things where they are as far as getting the great gigs and continuing to record. We've been blessed. VizTone is just a wonderful label. They're blues is a small niche market, and they just are great at promoting. They're great at getting songs on the radio. So we have all intents to keep making records with the VizTone label, keep trying to get these, hustling gigs is hard because as soon as you get a great festival, you start losing, you lose another. So that's one thing I tell my students. You got to keep the pipeline. There's a funnel. You got to keep all this stuff coming through the funnel because stuff falls out. A lot of blues festivals are folding up their tents. They're not profitable. They're aging out with demographics. They don't have the grants they used to have. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit. This is a topic I could talk about forever.
No, it's super valuable.
But I think ultimately the goal is to keep collaborating with these musicians while they're, Bob Stroger is one of Ben's heroes and mentors. He's 93, John. He's based out of Chicago. He travels all around the world all the time. And we've made some great recordings with him. Ben has done some gigs with him. But, when somebody's 93, I'd say that's top priority for Ben, is to continue to work with Bob Stroger. Wow, he's still healthy. He's vital. He's brilliant. He's funny. He's awesome to hang around with. It's more than just the music. It's what Ben learns when Ben talks to these guys and says, "Yeah, Freddie King got me my first gig in Chicago in the '50s." I mean, you talk about being close to the source. It's just you can't get any more special than that. So I think for Ben to continue to record and gig with the elders, with his heroes, I think that's front and center on his plate. For me, who's got a little different because he's my son, he's not my client, and I want to see him have a comfortable life like I have had. You get into the things of the passive income, right? The sync licensing. I mean, Ben has written some great songs, and I want to exploit that as far as really take advantage of it. I don't know, exploit's not necessarily a good word. It has negative connotations maybe, but he's written these great songs, he's recorded these great songs, and I want to provide him every opportunity to have those songs help him out, give him income over the years. And as you know, I've hit a lot of brick walls with that. We've had a little success with one TV show, but we've submitted a lot of songs and got a lot of nothing, a lot of silence. So that's one of my goals, and I don't really burden him with as far as the time I spend doing that. And I'm looking forward to getting more active on Disco AC and working with you on this. But that's definitely a goal of mine. I feel like it's an untapped potential. I feel like it's a white space of okay, there's a lot of content. You and I have discussed there's a ton of content on TV shows and movies, and it all needs music. And here is this young guy writing this cool music. It doesn't fit in everything, nor should it. But when the scene and the time period of a movie or show is right, or the location or whatever it is, the feel, I feel like there's potential opportunities, and I'm not going to give up. And that's one thing I try to instill in my students. I say, you look at me and you look at Ben, and they kind of looked at him like he was kind of a superstar when he came in. They were a little starstruck. I said, yeah, he's a couple of years older than you. He's 24. Most of my students are 22, but you guys don't understand. We've been at this for 6 years, and to get 10,000 followers on social media, which isn't really that much in the scheme of things, that's 3.5 a day. That is a slow drip if there ever was one, right? This is something that has taken us time, a ton of work for him, the creator, for me, the helping him market. It doesn't happen overnight. And you got to understand that we have had a million no's and a few yeses that you see that, oh, well, how did he get on the legendary Rhythm and Blues cruise? Everybody in blues wants to get on that. Yes. And we have unsuccessfully, tried for years and finally got on it this year. All of our opportunities are ones that we fight hard for. Now, it gets a little easier once you build up that brand and you get some success and you get the wind, you get your sales up. It does get a little easier, but that's one thing I try to instill on them. Don't think that this happens overnight. There's certainly the element of luck, but there's all these quotes about luck, right? Luck is where hard work and opportunity come together, right? It's not just like playing the lottery. It's not just percentage very low and you might or might not get lucky. No, you have to work hard. So
yeah, I think that's fascinating, and it's a good reminder for those folks who are so used to a quick hit and quick success with things. A lot of musicians are very talented, multi-potentialite type folks who have talents in a lot of areas and are smart and creative in a lot of ways and are used to things kind of coming a little bit easy to them. I know there's a lot of musicians who they didn't have to study very hard in school. They were kind of gifted in some way. And so then when they face real adversity, when they step out into the real world and they're really trying to do this, It seems like for a long time there's no success, but the slow drip, as you mentioned, does get you somewhere, and the sails do fill with air when you're putting the work in time and time again. And I think that if I could, I think Ben is in the perfect position because he's been at this a long time. He understands the struggle. Certainly doesn't have an ego and doesn't have airs. He's not looking for instant gratification, but when he performs, everyone knows that he has tapped into the source, that he's put the time in, he's worked hard at it. And I think you posted a video of Tommy Emmanuel, the great, amazing guitar player, standing on the side of the stage, smiling and bopping along to Ben Levin, who is just crushing it. It's great to see. And I think you have done him a great service, both as his dad and his manager. So kudos to you and to Ben. Before we wrap this conversation up, though, I want to ask you one final question, and I ask everybody this question. If you had a magic wand, what problem in your music business with Ben or in the music business in general would you use that power to solve?
John, I guess I would say I would give this advice to all the independent musicians and artists out there, that we know we don't have the budget of a corporation. We don't have the budget of a big name artist. So we have to be intentional. We have to do it all, right? We have to articulate our brand. We have to figure out who our target audience is. We have to carefully cultivate our social media strategy and everything. And I know it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. We can't do it all. But you should be intentional, that every day you should be. I'm a big believer in whiteboarding. Every day you should think about what needs to be done for the future, for booking, for designing material that you're going to put on your social media. So that word intentional, I think, is really important. It's something that sticks with me, that should also resonate with all the independent artists out there.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I certainly learn a lot from you, Professor Levin. So I want to give you kudos and props for that. You're a great mentor to a lot of folks, me included, and I appreciate you being here on the Music Business Mentorship. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave it for another episode. Hopefully you're tuning in and learning a lot. Stick with us. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Music Business Mentorship.